Today, this tutorial that I'm going to show you will explain to you how to scrap something out of a system that's in a warehouse bin. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to do a two-step process. We'll move it out of the bin into the proper scrap location, and then we'll write it off to the system. Okay? So if I look at LS24, which is my stock position report for material, for this material here, this will be our material in question, we have 6,144 eaches. If somebody was to cycle count that bin and realize that we don't have 6,144, we would have to scrap it out. So that's the process we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to take 144 out of this bin and write it out of the system. Okay? One other thing that I want to point out is that if I go to transaction MMBE for this exact same material, MMBE shows us the plant level material. Okay? And regardless of what bin location this inventory is in our warehouse, the plant view always shows a concatenation of this number. So if I was in 10 bins, they only care about this number here, 6144. Okay? So you'll see 6144. Okay? Now, first thing we want to do is we want to move it out of the bin to the scrapping interim location, and that'll allow for the write-off. Okay? So, what I'm going to do is go to transaction LTO1, and I'm going to use movement type 551, which is our movement type for scrapping. Okay? The reason we use that movement type is because that movement type is automatically configured to send the stock to the scrap location. You don't have to enter it. They know that anytime somebody uses that movement type, it's specifically for scrapping. Okay? So I'm going to put in 144. I always put the unit of measure to play it safe. We deal in eaches with raw materials or yards, and with finished goods, unless it's not a full carton, you can deal in cartons. Okay? So I'm putting in that material, putting in that quantity, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay? So you're going to notice one thing. It automatically designated what my destination is. The way this screen works is under movement data, we have our from location and our destination location. This is LTO1. We use this for a lot of other transactions, so it's important that you understand what it is. Okay? So we have our from data and our to data. Okay? It automatically selected, based on FIFO rules, the 4P065. Okay? If that was not the bin for which you wanted to scrap it out of, you could simply clear out the storage type, the storage section in the bin, and the quant, and re-enter your data. When you hit enter, it would just reconfirm that there is enough stock in that bin actually to be moved out. But because I only have one bin, I'm good to go. Okay? So you get this little message down here that checks your entries. All that's telling you is that take a look at your data, make sure it's what you want to do, because when you hit enter again, it's going to post. Okay? So I hit enter, and it moved the stock. Okay? We created a transfer order. If you wanted to look at that transfer order, you could look at that at LT23, or if we went back to our LS24, and I backed out of this and hit enter, you're now going to see a different stock position. You're going to see 6,000s in our bin and 144s in our scrap location. Okay? Now, if you moved it from to that scrap location and somebody comes up to you and says, well, don't write it off because we found it, you could use LTO1 or LT10 to move that back to the bin for which you found it. Okay? In our scenario, we're going to write it off. Now, if I go back to our MMBE, which is our plant level data for this, and I refresh this data, it's still at 6144. That's because in this transaction, we only care what's available at the plant. We don't care what's going on down in the warehouse. That's for the warehouse people to deal with. The schedulers and folks that promise stuff to customers care about what's in the plant. Okay? So, my next step is to write it off. Okay? To do that, I'm going to go to transaction LI21. Okay? This is a transaction that we clear differences out of the inventory based on storage type. Okay? Now the system's configured to only allow a few storage types to be cleared from. 911 is one of them. Okay? So what I'm doing in this transaction is I'm saying I want to see a list of stuff that could be cleared out from storage location 911, which is our scrap location. Sometimes we also use 999, which is our differences location. Okay? So here's the list. If there was other materials that were sitting in this 911 scrap, you would see them all. You can deselect and select all up here. You can also do it down here. It's important to understand that when this screen comes up, it's going to select all. If you only want to process one line, please hit the deselect all and select the line that you want to process. Okay? The next step we're going to do is we're going to hit this write-off button. This write-off button will move these 144 pieces out of inventory. It writes it off. We take a financial hit for it. So it's very important to understand that we're financially impacting your inventory when we use this write-off location. When we move it here in the warehouse, we don't make any financial impacts. We're just moving it to another section of the warehouse. But when we do this write-off here, it's going to write it out of the system. And I simply do that by hitting the write-off button. Okay? So what that does is it's going to do a posting in both the warehouse level and in the plant level, and it's going to write the system off. It's going to write the inventory, which we said was 144 pieces, off the books. This posting taking a little bit, but we're in our test system. In our real system, it posts in about a second. Okay, so it is a green light. It made our posting, so we're done. Okay, so I'm going to back out of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my warehouse level, LS24, and I'm going to hit enter. You're going to notice that our 911 scrap is now gone. It's because we wrote it off. And our bin's down to our 6,000, which is where we wanted to be. The other thing we want to look at here is if I back out of this, refresh our data, this is also at 6,000. So it's important that this number and this number match so that the plant and the warehouse are all in sync. So that's it. That's how you write off stock from a warehouse bin. If you have any questions, you can always contact support at pcf.com. Thank you.